Joining me now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
You said last fall that any effort to go after Robert Mueller could be the beginning of the end of the Trump presidency. In light of the reporting that President Trump ordered the firing of Robert Mueller last June, backing down only after the White House counsel threatened to resign, do you still believe in what you said, or is that a red line?
Oh, yeah, if you fired Mueller without cause, I mean, Mueller's doing a good job. I have confidence in him to get to the bottom of all things Russia. And Don McGahn, if the story is true in the New York Times, did the right thing, and the good news is the president listened. I don't know if the story is true or not, but I know this. Mueller should look at it, have complete confidence in Mr. Mueller. When he found two FBI agents that had a bias against President Trump, he fired them. So all this stuff about the FBI and DOJ having a bias against Trump and for Clinton needs to be looked at, but I've never believed it affected Mr. Mueller. So I will do whatever it takes to make sure that Mr. Mueller can do his job. We're a rule of law nation before President Trump. We're going to be a rule of law nation after President Trump. I haven't yet seen any evidence of collusion between President Trump and the Russians, but the investigation needs to go forward without political interference, and I'm sure it will.
So, Senator Graham, you believe the stories about McGahn, about President Trump?
I don't know. I believe it's something that Mueller should look at. We're not going to just say it's fake news and move on. Mueller's the best person to look at it, not me opine about something I don't know. I'm sure that there'll be an investigation around whether or not President Trump did try to fire Mr. Mueller. We know that he didn't fire Mr. Mueller. We know that if he tried to, it'd be the end of his presidency. So at the end of the day, let Mr. Mueller do his job and see if we can fix a broken immigration system.
I also want to go to one other statement and let you opine a little more. You also said last October to Politico, I don't think anybody in their right mind in the White House would think about replacing Mr. Mueller. Again, anybody in their right mind? So what does that say about President Trump if, in fact, this is true?
I think every president wants to get rid of critics. I mean, I remember the Ken Starr investigation, and Bill Clinton came out and said this guy spent millions of dollars and nothing to show for it. So the president is frustrated. He's told me 1,000 times, and everybody else, I didn't collude with no Russians. Well, we'll find out whether that's true or not. I have seen no evidence of collusion, so the president's frustrated, no doubt about that. But he did not fire Mr. Mueller. If the report is true, Mr. McGahn did the right thing, and to the president's credit, he listened. But this is something for Mueller to look at, and I'm sure he will.
Okay, to the president's credit, he listened, you say. You heard earlier the president himself saying last August, when asked directly about whether he considered dismissing Mueller, that he said he hadn't given it a thought. So if this reporting is true, then the president was lying to the American people?
This is for Mr. Mueller to determine. We're not going to stop looking at the president because he claims the New York Times was fake news, and we're not going to convict him based on a news article. As a matter of fact, I think Mr. Mueller is the perfect guy to get to the bottom of all this, and he will. And I think my job, among others, is to give him the space to do it. I intend to do that. I've got legislation protecting Mr. Mueller, and I'll be glad to pass it tomorrow. I see no evidence that President Trump wants to fire Mr. Mueller now. I don't know what happened back last year, but it's pretty clear to me that everybody in the White House knows it'd be the end of the President Trump's presidency if he fired Mr. Mueller. So I think we're in a good spot with Mr. Mueller.
You talked about that bill you introduced in August. At the time, you said it wasn't urgent to pass this. Will you push it further? You just said you'd like to pass it tomorrow.
I'd like to do two things. I think it'd be good to have legislation protecting all special counsels, but this doesn't make much news. There needs to be a special counsel to look at the Department of Justice and the way the FBI handled the Clinton email investigation and the early stages of the Russian investigation. The text messages between the two FBI agents don't show political leanings, they show political bias. I've seen a lot of conflicts of interest. I'm very disturbed by the way the Department of Justice and the FBI handled Mr. Steele. I think we need a special counsel to go into that area as well, and the law would apply to that person also.
I just want to go back to President Trump and Mueller for a moment. The Washington Post reports that a person familiar with the Mueller investigation says they are focusing on a pattern of behavior that President Trump tried to prevent Attorney General Sessions from recusing himself from the Russia investigation, asked Comey to drop the Flynn investigation before firing him, and dictated that misleading statement about Don Jr.'s Trump Tower meeting. Are you seeing a pattern of behavior that's concerning to you?
I'm seeing a man, Mr. Mueller, in charge of an investigation that needs to occur for the good of the nation. I have a lot of faith in him. He's going to get to the bottom of all things Russia, and I haven't seen any evidence of collusion, so I don't want to prejudge where Mr. Mueller is going to go. I think
But does this pattern disturb you at all, Senator?
Well, I don't know how accurate all this is. The bottom line is that you got a frustrated president. He could have fired Comey for any reason under the sun except for a corrupt purpose. Was there a corrupt purpose in firing Comey? I don't know. In terms of what he did with a statement, I wasn't on Air Force One. The only thing I can tell the American people, I'm a Republican, and I want to make sure that this president and every other president that follows can't be considered above the law, that they're treated fairly, and have an independent special counsel like Mr. Mueller is the best way forward.
The Washington Post is also reporting this weekend that President Trump wanted a classified memo. This was written by staff for House Intelligence Committee Chair Devin Nunes that suggests, and you are suggesting this in some ways, that they may have relied on politically motivated sources to justify the request for a surveillance warrant. The Justice Department does not want it released. They say it would be extraordinarily reckless without officials being able to review it. So is the president right on wanting that released? Do you want it released?
I want somebody outside of the Republican-led Congress to look at these allegations. I'm not asking that Lindsey Graham be the final arbiter of where the DOJ and the FBI was off base. No, I don't want it released yet. I don't. I want somebody who's without a political bias to come in and look at the allegations that I've seen. I've been a lawyer most of my adult life, and the way the FBI conducted itself in the Department of Justice bothers me. That's not to say you should investigate Trump too. You should do two things. Look at the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the Trump campaign. We can do these things.
How do you feel about Trump's attacks on law enforcement in general? Outside of this investigation, he, a few months ago, just said the FBI's reputation is in tatters, worst in history. What do you think of that language?
Well, the agents, the way they conducted themselves bothers me, and a lot of FBI agents are bothered by the way these two agents behaved. But the FBI is the best among us. They're a great organization. They're up there with the military in terms of public approval and respect. Mr. Comey, I think, had his problems. But we'll get to the bottom of all this. Don't lump everybody in together. The FBI is a wonderful organization, but somebody's got to watch those who watch us. The FBI is not above oversight. The Department of Justice is not above oversight. You know, it's not, you just can't let the organization behave without oversight. Whether it's the person you like or not like, it could be you or me tomorrow.
You know, President Trump said he looked forward to talking to Robert Mueller. His lawyers seem to have backed off on that a little bit. You're laughing. You can tell me why and tell me what you think he should do. I would look forward to
talking to him. I mean, you know, the president, I like President Trump. He feels frustrated. He's being accused of something he didn't do. He's a very frustrated man. To the president, I would talk to my lawyers before I made any firm decisions about who to talk to or not talk to. Mr. Mueller will do his job. He will focus on these New York Times allegations. He will follow the evidence where it leads. If the president wants to talk to Mr. Mueller, before he makes that decision to fire him, I'd talk to my lawyers. Okay,
and I want to turn to Steve Wynn, the billionaire friend of President Trump, who resigned yesterday as Republican chairman of the Finance Committee for the R-S-C. That was one day after allegations of sexual misconduct that the Wall Street Journal reported on. R-S-C Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel said today, I accepted Steve Wynn's resignation as Republican National Committee Finance Chair. She didn't address whether the R-S-C plans to donate any of the money or return any of the money he raised, even though days after the Harvey Weinstein scandal, the R-S-C blasted emails out calling it dirty money and that it should be returned. So do you believe that money should be returned?
Well, give her a day or two to figure out, but yeah, we should do of ourselves what we ask of the Democratic Party if these allegations have merit. So I don't think we should have a double standard for ourselves. I appreciate the fact that she acted quickly. Give her a chance to figure out exactly how deep this goes, and then if it's the allegations have merit, then we should return the money like we ask of the Democrats. And we're going to take up immigration tomorrow, and I've never been more hopeful of fixing a broken immigration system after dealing with it 10 years than I do right now, because the White House sent over a good proposal.
Okay, I want to talk about that proposal a little bit. We were talking earlier that I was on the border this week.
Yeah.
That wall that would run 1,900 miles, that seems a lot of money and an incredibly difficult project.
Right.
And about 2/3 of the country don't think it should happen.
Well, I think what will happen is that we spent $40 billion on the border security in the Gang of Eight bill, so $25 billion is not an outrageous number. We spent 42, I think it was, on securing the border. As to where the wall should go and whether it should be a fence, we'll have experts decide that. But the president's proposal of allowing 1.8 million Dreamers a pathway forward with citizenship is a huge step in the right direction. He deserves to have a escrow account to draw upon to secure the wall system, not just a wall. Chain migration and cutting legal immigration in half, those would be very problematic areas. But, there's a lot of interest.
But Senator, we're talking about $25 billion for a wall. Republican Congressman Will Hurd of Texas doesn't think it's a good idea. It's not effective.
Wall system. Right.
Steve Pierce down in New Mexico told me it's a waste of money. These are guys who live there on the border. They see it every day. They see people getting over. They see drugs getting in.
Right. Well, I've dealt with the border security for a decade now. The Gang of Eight spent $42 billion on border security systems. You don't need $25 billion for a wall. You need wall systems. You need roads. You need redundancy. You need to fix old fencing. So we're not going to build a 1,900-mile wall, but $25 billion can be spent wisely, because the Gang of Eight bill spent $42 billion to secure the border. So we're not going to build a wall in places it shouldn't go. The bottom line is this is a credible offer by the president on a pathway to citizenship. It is a breakthrough. He's getting a lot of pushback from the hard right, and he's getting pushback from a lot of liberal advocacy groups. So I think he's trying to thread a needle. We're not going to cut legal immigration in half and give all the green cards to the high-tech sector of the economy. We're going to have green cards for the entire economy. We're going to have a diverse nation. We're not going to limit people coming in the country from Norway or Europe. They're going to come from all over the world based on merit, and we're going to have people who are diverse and skill sets who are diverse.
Okay,
that's
Senator
a winning
Graham,
combination.
I just want to stop you right there, and I listened to you carefully, but is this going to happen by February 8th, or will we see another government shutdown?
We're not going to see a government shutdown. The one good thing that came from this mess last week is we're now focused on immigration. I think without the dust-up, we wouldn't have a commitment to move forward on February the 8th. We really have to March 5th. Here's what I think. There's so much interest in fixing this problem. The president's made a credible proposal. We're going to get there. We're going to give a pathway to citizenship for 1.8 million Dreamers who have been well vetted. We're going to do something substantial on the border. We're not going to cut legal immigration in half. We'll deal with chain migration in 2 phases, beginning in phase 1. So the bottom line is I'm optimistic. If the president continues the attitude he's expressed in this proposal, if my Democratic friends will calm down. I know it's hard to deal with President Trump. Let's take a deep breath. We can get there. America would be so well served to start fixing a broken immigration system. Obama couldn't do it. Bush couldn't do it. Trump can do it, and I hope we'll work with him to get it done.
Well, we'll see how you do. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Senator Graham.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.